One of the biggest reasons I think why people have an accent when they learn another language is because they're using their first language system onto the second language context, which is difficult because one of those systems is placement. If you don't know what placement refers to like where are you actually projecting sounds from? Every language has its own place where it's really projecting most of the sound from. So for instance, the easiest way to demonstrate this is maybe take a vowel sound like we've done in previous videos, like an E sound. You know, some languages, the way they pronounce an E sounds more like E, some doing like E, some doing like, in the case of American English, more like an E. You know, it's the same vowel, but it's treated different ways in different languages because we're projecting it from different places. You know, if I project that sound from my nose, like right now I'm talking to my nose, or if I project from my lips, like or if I project it from like the top of my throat, back of my mouth, like well, that's also very different than if I project it lower with using my diaphragm, like You can probably hear the difference between all of those. So we want to make sure that when we learn another language, we want to find out where is that placement from. That being said, there are some misconceptions about placement that I want to try to put to rest today. So we're going to talk about some myths related to placement and some ways that I think are going to be helpful for you as you approach it. Good morning, guys. Good evening. Good afternoon. Welcome to your daily American English pronunciation show. Wake up, American. We're here Monday through Friday, typically around 8 a.m. New York, to make sure that you can get in your 5 to 10 minutes of pronunciation practice for the day, because that's what it takes. It takes showing up for yourself in a consistent way for a little bit of time if you're really trying to make some radical in your pronunciation. And to guide you in this process, there is me. Hello, my name is Jeff. It rhymes with breath. That's one of the 4 keys to a natural sound in American English, including placement, pitch, breath, and trying to weaken your consonant sounds and strengthen your vowel sounds. And so today what we're really going to be focusing on is, again, myths related to placement, some misconceptions, and things like that. One of which, by the way, if you're here, feel free to say, hey, Milad's here. What's up, Milad? One of the misconceptions I see a lot about placement is that, well, this means everything I say in English needs to be low. I need to say everything with a low placement. And the reality is, well, no. Placement, I would say, is more of a general tendency than a set rule. Not everything you say in American English needs to be like low and things like that. There's times where maybe, depending on the emotion or the context, you have to be like, huh? What? Like things like that. You know, those sounds I just made, that is a much higher placement. I wouldn't be able to get them if I strictly used a low placement. I would say that we want to treat a low placement as just kind of a general tendency. If you're not sure what to do, if you're just kind of saying something that doesn't need to convey a more extreme emotion or anything like that, then in that case, you know, a low placement can work fine. So for instance, the way I'm talking right now, nothing's going crazy high, nothing's going crazy low. So a low placement works perfect for this sort of situation. Okay. Another thing that I've seen just based on recent comments is people saying things like, well, this person doesn't sound like they're talking with a high placement, a low placement. This person doesn't, or like things like that. The thing that we need to consider about placement is that it's very much dependent on our biology. I forget what video is. I have a video that walks through different voice registers. Talk about, okay, so like if for instance, if you're a male who has a higher like vocal register, like someone who like talk like this is more closer to their natural speaking voice for their body, like something like that. You can think of like Chris Tucker, Chris Rock. These are two comedians and actors who have higher pitched voices for male speakers. You know, that's I'll put it like this. You know, for their bodies, they're not talking with a high placement. They're talking with a low placement for their own particular bodies. Now, if I tried to imitate them, I would have to do things like that. I would have to talk like this, talk like Chris Tucker. Like, you know, it's like for me, if I were trying to imitate their voice, I would have to go pretty high. Okay, but for them, they're not going high. They can go higher than they normally talk, right? They can go higher than that if they wanted. So a lot of this is dependent on biology. Same thing other way. Like for instance, for female speakers, one of the things I've said, like for speakers, for women, there are women out there who have naturally lower registers. Like if you think of like Nora Jones, thinking of Lady Gaga. If you ever hear them doing interviews, their voices are just a little bit lower. So that's another thing to kind of consider. Placement is really all about your specific body type. What is low placement for you may not necessarily be, if another person were imitating you, they may not, use a low placement. They may need to use either a high placement or an ultra low placement. Okay, so a lot of this is dependent on your own individual body. So what do we take from this? Well, this means that for our own bodies, we need to use a low placement that's low for us. Okay. If you feel like when you're copying someone that you have to do like these artificial, like I have to go really, really high and things like that, you may be modifying your placement to match the sound that they're doing. But that doesn't mean that that person is also doing the same thing. Their placement may just naturally be at that spot. Okay. Another thing that's kind of related to our first point, just a misconception about placement, I think is the idea that I think a lot of people when they learn it, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to focus on this purely. And I certainly understand that placement can have a huge impact on the quality of our voice when we talk. However, there are other factors. It's not the only factor. That's why it's not, the one step to sound American. It's the four keys. The four keys to a natural American English accent. It's not just placement, right? There's three other keys. It's placement, pitch, breath, and weakening consonant sounds. All of them I would put as equal weight. If I could only study one of them, it probably wouldn't be placement. It would probably be breath and diaphragm work. And the reason for that is because breath and diaphragm work explains why we have weak consonants. Because in order to push your vowel sounds more. Vowels really move a lot of breath. Consonants typically are blocking a lot of breath. In terms of pitch, breath has an impact because breath, by incorporating more breath and more diaphragm, it's naturally going to lower your placement, and then it's also naturally going to lower your pitches a bit. I would also say that breath is key and diaphragm work is key too. Because what that does is it helps you link all your words together across sentences a lot more naturally as well. And so we're seeing that breath has an impact on all the areas, including also pitch, in the sense that if you have breath but you don't have enough pitch, it's going to sound like you're mumbling because all your syllables just have the same sound over and over again. So we need the pitch to create the separation between the syllables. If you don't have pitch, but you have breath and low placement, you can't understand that because there's no pitch variation. Everything's the same. Okay, so we need the pitch to create the separation. So that's why if I only could study one concept, the concept I would probably focus the most on is breath. Not necessarily placement. Placement's important, but if I only had to pick one, I would pick breath. Mirka says, thanks, Jeff. I need to hear that because in the beginning I was shadowing, think I was matching the placement, then realized I was not. Yeah, for sure. I get that. Thank you for sharing that experience, Mirka. Mila says, it's just enough for placement to be below the larynx. I don't know. I would say, if you're below the larynx, so your larynx is in your throat, but you're not exactly engaging your diaphragm and things like that. Like, that's the thing. I think the more you're able to kind of feel yourself engaging your diaphragm, I think you put yourself in a greater chance for being in the right position for placement. I'll be honest. So those are just some quick things I just wanted to mention about placement, because these are questions and things I see online about placement a lot. So I want to make sure we're avoiding any confusion. If you are interested in learning more about placement, practicing your placement, and things like that, I encourage you. It's something that we're looking at constantly in our Telegram group, where every day I give pronunciation corrections and things like that. In case that sounds like something you're interested in, it looks like this. People send their audio files, and I send in corrections. Every day we give you a new challenge or group of words to say, and so you can practice those if that sounds like something you're interested in. Joining us, you want feedback from me on your placement, your pitch, your breath, and your weakening consonant sounds to make sure you're doing it in a way that sounds natural in American English. That's what the group is for. Beyond that, Miko was asking about breath. How can I practice more breath? I'll be honest, I have a whole playlist just about breath. That's it. It's just breath exercises, which will do way more justice than anything I can tell you in just a couple of minutes. It will go through exercises to make sure you're using your diaphragm. It'll go through exercises to practice using breath at a sentence level. You can find it if you're serious about breath. I encourage you to go to our channel page and go all the way down to here. How to breathe in American English. All I do in this playlist is give you exercises for linking words together with breath, how to lower your placement, how to make sure you're using your diaphragm when you talk, and things like that. And also some exercises you can do across a sentence level and even conversational level to implement more breath. So honestly, I know it's a horrible answer, but that can do way more justice than anything I can do in a couple minutes. So I hope that helps. All right, with that, guys, I'm going to head out. Thank you for spending part of your day with me. Look, I appreciate it. There's a million pronunciation resources out there. I see it. I know. Students are always telling me like when other channels are releasing videos. We've had members join us from other groups like Hadar's channel or Rachel's and things like that. So I know they're out there, but the fact you spent some time with us is greatly appreciated. I will see you all later. Hope you have a good day. Have a good night. Good afternoon. Love you out. Just out. I'll see you all later. Take care, guys.